Cards. There's some folks here in the front who have not received cards. If you do have cards, can you please pass them to the two ladies who are walking around? I'm going to introduce Craig Hammerman, and I believe Rob Parrish is going to assist him from Community Boards 6 and 2 respectively. So we're going to handle the Q&A for us this evening. Craig, thank you.
Thank you, Irene. Just keep your hands up and you'll get a card. There'll be no shortage of questions, I'm sure. So I'm Craig Hammerman. I'm the District Manager for Community Board 6, and I'm joined back here by Robert Parrish, the District Manager for Community Board 2. The arena itself is in the footprint of the arena is in Community Boards 2 and 6. The remainder of the site being in Community Board 8, which is why the 3 community boards are co-sponsors with ESD tonight. It's our job to make this project work as best as we all can, frankly, because if it doesn't work for us, it doesn't work for Barclays folks either, and that would not be good. But frankly, you know, there's no longer an us and them because there's a building there, and this building is in my district, and now I need to represent that building, and I need to work on this every single day to make sure that it works for my community. So in that respect, the community boards serve on the Atlantic Yards District Service Cabinet that was put together by the Borough President and Councilmember James' office. We're working with the agencies on a day-to-day basis, including the Department of Transportation and any other relevant agencies to address impacts. We're working with the New York Police Department on trying to get to the point where a precinct is determined for the arena itself. We're working with the operators on potential stipulations for a liquor license that will be granted for the arena. We are your representative voice in city government. We're here to work for our communities with our city and state and federal agencies. We're your planners and your advocates, and as such, we've been asked to run the Q&A portion of tonight's meeting. I know that we are joined by Ken Adams, the president of ESD. Thanks for being here, Ken. And frankly, you know, I think the watchword that we should take away from today's meeting is that this TBM will only be as good as we all make it. And there's plenty of room for contributions. We're looking to our own community members because there's no shortage of ideas or creativity or resourcefulness in any of Brownstone, Brooklyn, and we expect our neighbors to come up with ideas that will help make this work better for everyone. So with that, I'm going to start taking questions. I'll put them out there between Sam and Jane and any other folks in the room that are resources. We're going to get as much information as we can tonight, and as Arena had promised, whatever can't be answered tonight, they will put answers on the website at some point between now and June 22nd, so that we can get information into the hands of the people because you cared enough to come out tonight and ask questions. With that said, our first question. Residential parking permits was suggested by many community stakeholders as a way of maintaining greater control over who gets to use scarce legal curbside parking that exists in the neighborhoods around the arena. Can somebody please provide us with an update on this initiative?
Sure. Chris Rones from New York City DOT will explain.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christopher Rones. I work for New York City DOT with the Brooklyn Borough Commissioner's Office. In terms of residential permit parking, what we said last year and what we are committed to doing is looking at the on-street parking resources that are out there. We have done data collection. We're working on a report summarizing what those resources are, what the levels of occupancy are, and making some conclusions about the feasibility of residential permit parking. That report's not been done yet, but we expect within a matter of weeks, really, to have a report that would be available to the City Council and to community stakeholders. I will say that in terms of residential permit parking, we are constrained, regardless of how the report, what conclusions the report makes about the feasibility of it. We are somewhat constrained, the city is, by state enabling legislation that would be necessary for such a program to be implemented. So that's one factor. The other factor is it would take some time, even if state enabling legislation were available today, And even if, like I said, the report showed that it were feasible, it would take, we think, about 9 to 12 months for a program to be developed, implemented. Resources would have to be identified and brought to bear to administer such a program. So what I want to communicate tonight is that we're not in a position, for several reasons, to have a residential permit parking program in place when the arena opens on September 28th. That said, we will continue, again, we're hoping to have that report available soon, and certainly in addition to the work that Sam Schwartz is going to be doing for Forest City Radnor in coordination with us, looking at traffic conditions and looking at the impacts and the effectiveness of the TDM program they're proposing tonight. We'll also continue to look at on-street parking, the conditions there, the occupancy levels, and we'll be able to compare what we've observed before the arena opens to what the situation is after the arena opens. And I foresee that this will be an ongoing discussion as we move forward.
Thank you, Chris. I think this was answered, but I'll ask anyway, just in case you have anything more to add. Will you use social media, Facebook, Twitter, etc., to stay in touch with ticket holders, to remind them to take public transit and keep them up to date with any relevant transit updates about enhanced transportation service options that will be available after games and events?
The answer is yes. Someone better adept than me.
Okay, so it won't be Sam Schwartz at the using his thumbs.
I might say gridlock Sam warns you not to drive in the area.
All right. Thank you. What disincentives will you have in place to prevent people who choose to drive from circling neighborhood streets to look for free on-street parking?
What we're trying to do is get as many of those people as possible, first of all, to not drive, but those that do elect to drive, we're going to try to incentivize them to use the reservation system, in which they don't change, no money changes hands at the parking facility itself. In addition, we're looking to intercept drivers so that they get a much lower parking fee if they park at the remote parking and get a free shuttle bus.
I actually have a cluster of questions about the shuttle bus. Where will they be during the events themselves, after the drop-off and before the pickup?
Well, we are right now negotiating with a shuttle bus operator who's located in Red Hook, a woman-owned business, and we might be able to use her facility in Red Hook in the interim. If not, we have locations on Pacific Street right opposite the parking facility. It will not be on anyone's street.
Will the shuttle buses have drop-offs so that local businesses in the area can benefit, namely Fifth Avenue restaurants?
No, it will not have any interim stops. It will be a closed-door service from the initial stops, and maybe 2 stops, and then run right to the arena, and then post-game from the arena to those stops.
Will there be shuttles from beyond what you've shown on the map, for example, the Staten Island park and ride locations that were mentioned in the MEC?
The Staten Island location was one that we took a look at, and one of the problems with remote parking is a lot of people would like to have the option to leave if they need to leave for any reason. The game is blowout, there's an emergency at home, whatever the reason is, they'd like to have that ability. If we had the facility in Staten Island, you wouldn't have that ability, you'd have to wait until the end. The second thing, and perhaps even more importantly, it means that you would drive to one of these facilities in Staten Island and then be on a bus for all that time, stuck in the same traffic you would be if you were driving. We find having a remote parking facility in which you do have a transit option, the local bus, or in this case, it's close enough for a 20-30 minute walk from the arena in case you had to leave early.
Okay, shuttle bus to off-site parking appears to loop back via 6th Avenue and Bergen Street, which already backs up and fails to clear between cycles. How will the impact of the additional shuttles be mitigated?
Yeah, if we identify any problems, let me have Dan tell you the routes which have not been fully established yet. But the route that we showed you was a route that is now a bus route. And if we do have any traffic congestion on those locations, we'll go back to that. Okay. There it is. Okay, so it turns on, did you say, it turns in this map, which is not the final route. We have to work with New York City DOT on the final route. But here we have it turning on 4th Avenue, which follows a bus route that currently goes onto Bergen Street and then onto 4th Avenue. So it follows an existing bus route. We have to get permission from the DOT for this route, and that's what we're working with them. They may come up with a different location. If there is a problem along that route, it's in the Barclays Center interest to solve that problem, because that means people are being delayed, buses aren't arriving, and that would not be a tolerable situation.
And actually, I had a question. Will there be any dedicated bus-only lanes on Atlantic and or Flatbush during the games, or are those buses going to be mixing with general traffic?
There will be no dedicated bus lanes. They'll be mixing with traffic.
Okay. All right, here's a softball. I'll lob you. Can you talk about pedestrian safety?
Okay, we will, pedestrian safety is paramount in this area. We're going to have traffic enforcement agents at a number of locations, and they will be augmented to the extent possible by pedestrian traffic managers. And also we will have New York City police officers paid for by Barclays Center in uniform. It's called part of the paid detail program, and that exists around arenas, stadia, and lots of other locations. And the emphasis will be on pedestrian safety, especially the surges that we expect post-game.
Are there any anticipated traffic pattern changes in the area around the arena once the arena is opened?
We are not looking at any street direction changes, any pattern changes. The only patterns that may change might be signal timing patterns. We work with DOT. We've already laid out signal timing patterns. Post-game, the traffic signals, we will communicate with the traffic control management center that I showed you in Long Island City. They have the ability to then change the traffic signals. Essentially what they would do is the signals on Flatbush Avenue from the arena would be progressions away from the arena in both directions. If you're heading south on Flatbush Avenue, you'll watch staggered signals change, turn to green. If you're heading north, the same thing on Atlantic Avenue. So that's the only pattern changes that we will be doing that I know of.
But no reversal of directions,
no reversals,
or any other lane restrictions or anything of that nature. Okay. All right, so let's take a left turn here. Please compare for us with Madison Square Garden Knicks games, numbers of attendees, parking spaces for those who drive, etc.
We were consultants to Madison Square Garden. They provide no parking. They provide no parking system to link to any of the parking facilities. Their parking is always changing based on whatever development patterns there are in the area. They have done almost nothing for the black cars. You do have a taxi and limousine taxi location, but other than that, Madison Square Garden exists without the kind of TDM plan that we're showing you here. In terms of numbers, I believe the stadium, the new arena is also about 18,000 modified, maybe a little bit more than 18,000. It's almost identical to the Barclays Center. And the modal splits were also about what we showed you in the third,
Okay. Is the TDM plan for other events the same as for Netscapes?
The TDM for large events is pretty much the same. So if there's a concert in the beginning, we're working with the MTA to identify travel patterns. In our work with Madison Square Garden, what we found was during concerts, fewer people drove. Maybe people elected to drink or do other things, but they didn't drive cars in the same percentage as they did. So we'll have to monitor the concerts with the MTA, see if there are any changes. If there is a smaller event, it is unlikely for a 3,000, 5,000 person event for the MTA to suddenly have, and I'm speaking on your behalf, correct me if I'm wrong, but to put additional trains out there for smaller events. So for large events, the intent right now is to go with the plan that we have shown you, and if there are smaller events, each one of those will be measuring and see what parts of the TDM elements are in fact needed.
When the 400 bike parking spaces were mentioned, there was a promise that they would be secure bicycle parking. Can you describe how personnel will be deployed to make sure that there's dedicated security?
There will be personnel security people from the arena that will be out there. They will be visible, they will be in uniform, and they will be there prior to the start. I don't know if it'll be an hour or 2 hours prior, and they will remain for an hour or 2 hours after the game is over.
What type of communication will the Barclays operators have set up to coordinate their events with other large-scale events that might be taking place, such as at the Brooklyn Academy of Music?
When the environmental impact statement was done, they looked at events at Brooklyn Academy of Music as part of the background. So that's already been taken into account in the worst-case analysis.
Do season ticket holders or...
I just say something about the coordination with BAM. It's not just BAM, there are some new facilities that BAM has that are opening up, and we have started to have conversations with our arena ops and event staff with them. So there will actually be some sort of coordination and plan that takes into consideration all the things that are happening in the community when there's an event also at Barclays Center. And in addition to that, our parking system with those 20 garages within walking distance, some of those are shared with BAM. So our parking operator management people, the Click and Park people, are meeting with BAM to ensure that they have a level of comfort that for whatever reasons, Barclays is not suddenly taking the parking away from BAM that is closest to them. So the truth is there will be coordination regardless of whatever the EIS said. That's something that will be in place.
That's reassuring. Thank you.
When they are doing sales, even of all access, which are very expensive seats, they do not offer parking, and they don't, and when asked, they don't give it.
Are the LIRR trains going to run after midnight?
I'll let the Long Island Railroad answer that.
That'll be part of the evaluation process, if there is a need.
And a couple of others. Parking is not offered with tickets. And when they are doing sales, even of all access, which are very expensive seats, they do not offer parking, and they don't, and when asked, they don't give it.
Are the LIRR trains going to run after midnight?
I'll let the Long Island Railroad answer that.
That'll be part of the evaluation process. If there is a need, we are open to continuing service past midnight. But we first must evaluate what it's going to look like.
So it's not planned, but it's possible.
Correct.
Okay. Can a stop at the arena be added to the B103 bus line?
Which line to B103?
B103, yes. I think that's
We'll
one of
take
the commuter
Judy,
lines
do you wanna-
between Borough Park and Williamsburg, perhaps?
That's an MTA bus company route, but I will pass on this suggestion to them.
Okay. Thank you. So, what happens to the TDM plan when the transit authority shuts down trains for overnight work?
We're in touch with the MTA. We already gave them the schedule. There will always be trains that will be running. I don't know if you want to address that, Judy.
Many of you are aware of our new fast track program, and we have looked at what would happen if we operated a fast track at the same time where we have a big event, and we feel that we can just, basically we would add the additional gap trains, but instead of maybe northbound 4 trains going up the Lex, it might be an additional 2 or 3 train going up the west side. So we feel that we can handle it, and we'll see as things come along and try to manage to provide enough service for everyone.
Thank you. Actually, this was a question that I had asked earlier today. Can you pull the data from the EIS and show us what the original projections are for the various intermodal splits, and then overlay layers to show us how these distributed strategies that you've come up with would each impact on what the worst case scenario might look like, so we can actually see the hard numbers and monitor this with you in real time?
We'll get you whatever is in the environmental impact statement regarding that. For the most part, the TDM measures are taken in whole. They're not broken up so discreetly, and we don't propose breaking them up. We think that you need to take it as a whole. So discouraging parking is one thing, and encouraging transit is another thing. We're not going to say each one is 2%, this one is 3%. And the cumulative effect of just the information alone, that part we do know from the surveys, that was 9%. If maybe in our questions we can say what made you switch if you were going to be a driver, we might take a look at that in our surveys. Right now we don't have that kind of fine information.
I ask, just to put this in context, because it was our district that we worked with Sam on the Red Hook IKEA plan, and a year after they opened, we had asked them to come back and do an assessment of how well their plan worked, and much to everyone's pleasant surprise, there were significant numbers of people that had shifted to public transit options away from personal vehicles, which was what the community had feared in the first place, and the projections exceeded everyone's expectations.